Okay, so background, scenes, that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm kind of like gonna talk about this in three sections. Gonna try to keep it as simple as possible since this is the first time I'm talking about backgrounds. The first thing I want to talk about is thumbnails. And the concept of thumbnails is actually like a really important thing for drawing in general. And not everybody does it, but I feel like everybody could benefit from it. So thumbnail is when you draw like the most basic sketch version of an idea. So let's say I have the idea that I want to draw a kitchen, right? I might have thoughts in my head about like what I want to include and what kind of layout I want for that. But it's better to actually like see the thought, right? So like, what could a kitchen look like? Well, let's draw a little box, maybe a little bit bigger. Maybe I could not do a bad job trying to draw a little box. Okay, well, a kitchen could have like kitchen island, counters, a big beautiful window or something like that. So let's say that we want to make the big beautiful window like kind of the central thing. So like here's an idea. What if we have like a counter and then we have like a kitchen island. It's kind of like this, and like this is like a potential like view, but then you're like, oh well, it's gonna be kind of hard to like show the characters in this view, so why don't I do another idea where like we've got maybe the same kind of scene from this angle, and then like, oh, it's a lot easier to like put characters in here like doing things, and maybe it's like more interesting of an angle. And kind of what my point here is that when I had the thought of like I want to draw a kitchen, I had maybe like a vague idea, but if I take like 30 seconds to like put these ideas down, it kind of gets the ideas flowing a lot more, and it helps me like think in different directions in terms of like composition, like what I want visible, where do I want it. So you know, when you're in the stage of like thinking of a scene, it's a good idea to just like do a couple 30-second sketches. Like obviously the point is not that they look good, the point is that you get the idea down on paper so that like you can understand what you're thinking and that you can kind of see what the idea looks like potentially. Because like this little bit of prep, you know, even if I only did these two thumbnails, like, okay, well, I like this one better, this one here on the right. So that tells me that like this is how I want to like lay out my drawing, and not like the first one, right? Because like maybe we've got like the character from like straight on or like back, and like that's just not interesting. But this is more interesting. It can kind of help you like work through your ideas and decide like what kind of scene you want to do. But I actually might do a third thumbnail because I kind of want to lead into the next idea with the thumbnails. Because one trick, I mean, one technique for making backgrounds look believable, dimensional, interesting, is to have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. It's easier to kind of like show that with an outdoor scene, but we can do it with the kitchen. So like with that in mind, like let's say, and I might even bust out the pencil tool so we can get really sketchy here. Let's say that we want to have like a character working at a counter, kind of like we have here, right? And we've got this window here that they're going to be able to look through. maybe like a door here. And yeah, we'll have like a kitchen island here. And we've got the character. They're doing something at the counter here. They're maybe like cooking something, right? Alright, that's a pretty interesting scene. But this is just the middle ground, so how could we do like more dimension here? Well, we could imagine that, kind of looking down, I'm really thinking like, okay, I have an idea. We can imagine that in this kitchen there is like a hanging plant. And this plant is like in the extreme foreground. If you can imagine like a camera is looking down into the kitchen, kind of, this plant is like in the kind of like in the extreme foreground. It's like kind of overlapping like where the camera lens is pointing. And that's kind of like some indication of a foreground. And this is like way closer than the character, right? And then like background, well, it's kind of hard to do in a small like space like this, but we can like imagine that like, oh, maybe like there's a little dog looking up, and there's like, I don't know, a laundry room in here. Like, here's a clothes basket, and here's like a little rug. And like these little things can add a little bit of interest. You know, they're not like super like eye-catching details, but they're little things like around the perimeter, like in the extreme foreground and in the background, that like add a sense of like depth. And I would even like put like another plant or something here in the foreground, because I like foregrounds that kind of frame the image a little bit. And let's see, I will save all of these thumbnails so that I can post them later, but kind of to go more into like being able to like visualize what I'm talking about, I want to do like a really simple, like straightforward kind of drawing. So let's say that this is just like an outdoor drawing. You've got, let's see, what's a really simple, maybe you've got like a bench. And like there's flowers and bushes and things around the bench. It's a nice little scene, and like maybe some people are like sitting on the bench and having a conversation. Maybe they've got like trees around them. Maybe there's like a little pond or something here. I don't know. This is, again, this is like the middle ground. This is like the subject of the drawing. We've got like, you could end the drawing here, right? Like, this could be it. But, and I'm going to just make this blue for maybe not that quite bright. But, like, to illustrate the point that I was talking about sooner, like, okay, but what if we're looking at them through a couple of bushes, and there's like kind of like a skinny little tree here. I'm just gonna kind of get rid of like where it's overlapping. Like maybe there's, I don't know, a little bit of foliage coming down from like a tree we can't see. That's just like a little bit off screen, right? And then, well, I might keep that blue just so I can separate it for now. And then in the background, maybe there's like, you know, like hills. It's really bad hills and like a mountain. Please excuse my crappy drawing, and some clouds. Okay. And I'm gonna do something to like kind of make this easier to think about, I think. Okay. So it's good to be able to like break up these background, middle ground, and foreground into like big shapes, or we can imagine them as like separate layers. Okay, so we can see a lot more easily now that like the blue color is everything in the background, the green color is the middle ground, and the orange color that is the foreground. Now I like this. I like doing like really kind of invasive foregrounds like this because I feel like they frame the image and they kind of tell you where to look. They take up like a lot of space, and I just, you know, I like that. And it kind of like adds like a lot of like depth and interest to the drawing to do something like that. I think it'd be kind of hard to like think of stuff to like put in the extreme foreground, but you know, it can be like really easy, simple stuff like plants, like part of a wall, part of a curtain if you're doing something indoors. You could imagine that the camera is like looking under like or through like a pile of like 2x4s leaned up against a house. Like there's so many things that you can do, and one of the things that I can do to make it like a little more dimensional or depth. I'm gonna copy these layers real quick and show you what I mean. That's not what I meant to do. I'm gonna put these in the folder, and we're gonna make the folder grayscale. So one of the things I like to do is to use value to create that depth. So you can imagine that, like, the light is coming from behind. The light is coming from behind them, and the characters are kind of in shadow, but there's still enough like light coming down from like above that it lights them and allows you to see like the details of the characters. But the extreme foreground is extremely in shadow. It's like very dark. And when you do that, you can use values to like really create like a sense of depth, as well as like, again, like framing the subject of your drawing so that like the eyes are going like straight to these people. And like I'm doing this in black and white, but of course you can do that with like color. You can use like dark greens for this part in the front. You can use like maybe more vibrant colors for the characters, and then more like soft white pastel colors for the background, and kind of like get that effect. And I know, like, you know, even if you don't want to do color though, you can darken it with like pencil, or if you're, you know, using like a marker, you can use a marker or something like that. But like however you do it, like having these three separate kind of like layers of the drawing for foreground, middle ground, and background can really make a scene like more convincing. Okay, we have like two versions of this, so I kind of want to like copy and paste the lines. Because I want to save like both like the color one and the not color one. Merge. Bear with me while I prepare this stuff so that I can also post it. I really have two more points when I think about it. I know I only listed one more, but I've got a couple more. So another important thing when you're drawing a scene that's going to make it easier for you to make the characters really look like they're part of the scene, because I know for me, like in the past when I've been drawing comics, like it'll kind of look like the character is just kind of like floating in the background. And we don't want that. So, even if you don't really, like, know perspective, you're not really, like, ready to, like, learn it, I think that a good way to start, like, a sketch of a scene is just to have a floor with a grid. And you could even make a real lumpy grid. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just imagine the different hills and things like that, the different like altitudes as wrapping lines. you're drawing an outdoor scene, right? And I should have put these side by side. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put them side by side. I'm gonna shrink them and put them side by side. And what this helps with is, like, you're gonna be able to put a guy in this environment a lot easier, because you can draw, like, we're just gonna use like little blob people. I could draw like a little guy, you know, that's just like on the canvas with nothing underneath it. But like, is he like situated right? Does he like really look like he's standing on a floor or not? And like when I put him down here, like it's kind of off. But like if I have this grid, let's move him out of the way, go away. If I have this grid, then it's a lot easier for me to kind of like sketch a person. To look like they're like standing on ground. And the same with like the bumpy, uneven ground. You know, you just like have somebody like he's a little leaned over, but you get my point. Standing on the ground, it helps you like put somebody into a scene. And more than that, it helps you put like different objects into a scene. Like maybe there's like a little bush kind of hanging off this little slope, and there's like a little bush like kind of more up on the slope. There's like rocks. Maybe there's like a garden bed next to the guy, right? I think that like having like this grid that you draw makes it a lot easier to like place objects and people in the scene, even if you don't know anything about perspective, because you can kind of just like wing it and see that it looks right to you. If you wanted to, you know, you could, you could draw these lines to a vanishing point and like get this perspective right? And like that would make it more accurate, but it's not necessary. I think practicing perspective, like practicing like boxes like we've talked about in perspective, can help you get a more intuitive like imagination when you're like doing these grids that kind of mimic the idea of perspective. But you can just start, right? Like you can just start and just start drawing like this, and the more you do it, the more you're gonna get a good idea of like how to stick people into a background. This is so helpful. I'm so glad. And like the last thing that we kind of talked about like last night, and when I say the last thing, after I say that, if you have any like thoughts or questions or more things that you want me to talk about that like specifically address like what you want to draw, just let me know, because like I don't want to like, what I don't want to do is say like this is what I think would be helpful, and then it's actually like not helpful to like what you're trying to do. So if there's something I can like clarify, or if there's something I can go into specifically that applies to like what you want to draw, just let me know. But I'm also going to merge this and have it on its own layer. The last thing that I thought of that I wanted to talk about is I've been drawing like, and I'll pull up a couple of pages here to kind of illustrate my point. Let's see, is it this page? It's not. I think it's page 18, yeah. Loading. Here we go. Okay, so here I drew like this shop, and I wanted to make it like a spooky dark magic shop, right? So I had to fill it with objects to like get that theme across. And it can be really difficult to like fill a whole room with like lots and lots of objects. And in the past, like I think I've tried to make like lists of like 20 to 30 like objects I could like put into a room to like make it look like the type of space that it's supposed to be, or an outdoor space like a garden or something like that. But actually, what I've been kind of thinking later or lately is having like maybe like 5 standout objects that are like really carrying the theme, and then have like 2 or 3 like categories of space filling things that I can just draw repeatedly, and like they're a little more simple, and you know, you can just kind of like create like piles of clutter with them. So in this shop, the standout objects, and I kind of, you know, it's a small frame and like the screen tone kind of covers it up, but I was getting way carried away when I was drawing this, and I forgot how small it was going to be on the page. So maybe you can't see it that great, but the standout objects are, there's like a sarcophagus, there are a battle axe and a mace, there's a unicorn skull, there's like a big tapestry with a dragon on it, and there's a jar full of eyeballs. So those were my like big objects that say this is a dark spooky magic store, right? And then my categories of clutter are urns and bottles, books, and skulls. So you can see that like a lot of the space on these shelves are just taken up by those 3 categories of objects, and I even threw some like boxes in as well. And those are all like pretty simple things to draw, and easy enough to like draw a lot of them and create clutter with them. And they're not time consuming. You can kind of just like turn your brain off if you know that you're going to just be drawing the same thing over and over and over again, and it's like relatively simple, right? So that's kind of how I try to like populate spaces with objects or natural features or whatever, if we're drawing like an outdoor scene. So like if I were going to be drawing a garden, for example, I might like make a short list of things that are really stand out, like eye-catching, like these are things that belong in a garden. And let's say I wanted to do that. I might say, well, if you have some ideas about like standout objects and like background objects, let me know. But I might say like a watering can. Exactly, a watering can. I might say like a beautiful iron fence, like a ornate iron fence. Shovel. I might say like a 1 or 2 like really colorful flowering plants that I'm gonna put a lot of detail in. And one more, I might do like a garden like hutch where you would like keep garden tools, and it would be like kind of cool looking, right? And then for my like space filling kind of stuff, I'm thinking of my vegetable garden, not a landscape garden. Well, this could be a vegetable garden. It could be, instead of like flowers, it could be like that we're gonna do like a couple of really stand out like vegetables that are like really eye-catching, and then like a couple of categories of stuff that just fills space. So like we could say like pots, bags of soil, or compost. What's another? Well, obviously like just like kind of like more nondescript plants, simple plants. So if we put everything together that like we've talked about, Well, let's think about thumbnails. Like I said, vegetable gardens can have marigolds, I've learned, to help keep pests away and attract pollinators. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. So let's say we want to do a couple thumbnails. Well, what does a garden look like? Okay, like maybe this is like the side of the house, and we've got our little hutch here, and we've got like our fence here. That's like coming towards us. And we've got a little guy working. Guy, lady, a non-binary pal, what have you, working in the garden, and they're working on like a cool looking vegetable, and maybe there's like a couple cool looking vegetables behind them, right? And we got a lot of clutter and whatnot, and maybe there's like a stack of pots like in the foreground, and like a couple of bushes in the foreground, and maybe some foliage from a tree, and in the background maybe we got like a cool little forested hill or something like that. And like I might take some time to like do some different scenes, but like I'm okay with this. You know, this is okay. And like when I think about, you know, the values, I'm doing the wrong thing here. When I'm thinking about like the values, I might add a little bit of values to the thumbnail. Just imagine that I'm doing a bunch of thumbnails. Sometimes you get lucky and you're okay with like the first one that you do. You know, I might make the extreme foreground like a little more dark. So like, okay, I've made a thumbnail. I'm gonna shrink it. You don't want to take too long on these thumbnails because they're just about like getting ideas down, right? Well, let's say that's what I want to draw. So again, like I'm not gonna use like actual like serious perspective here, but I will do like a little grid so that we can kind of have a good idea of the plane of the scene. Doesn't have to be perfect. You just want the idea that this is like a flat-ish surface that people and objects could be on, right? We're gonna like make that a little bit lighter. So I might actually use pencil because we can get into like actually kind of drawing a little bit. So I'm gonna draw like the middle ground first. And I got my little house. I'm gonna do the biggest, simplest details first. I love the thumbnail concept to start getting ideas down. That is very helpful. I always do thumbnails for my comic pages, and when I'm doing illustrations, they really help me like see, you know, what I want to do. And like everybody's kind of got like a different level of ability to like imagine images. Like some people have aphantasia. But I think when you make a thumbnail, it can really help, even if you have a hard time like imagining things visually. So yeah, I'm doing the biggest, simplest shapes first. I don't know what a gardening hutch looks like. I feel like I'm making it look like a little lemonade stand. I'm imagining like little rows of vegetables here. We'll put a little Noonvale mouse. and she's gonna be, I don't know, like, what vegetables are, like, cool looking or impressive. We'll say that, like, she's tending to some bright red peppers. And, like, right behind her are, like, some... Well, tomatoes are also red. We want a little bit of contrast. Maybe some, like, very purple eggplants. So, like, we're framing her in, like, a lot of bright colors. And then maybe, like, whatever's on this plant is not so interesting or you know, bright. And then we want to have our, like, foreground stuff. So, you know, we have, like, this big bush here and, like, a couple of pots here. We can kind of erase the stuff that's behind. And it's kind of okay, like, that this stuff is, like, really simple and basic. Because we don't want the extreme foreground stuff to have, like, a lot of detail, right? We want it to be, like, pretty plain. Because the purpose of it is really to just, like, draw your eyes to the character and what they're doing. We could even put, like, a little bit more foreground. And then, like I said, we can put some, like, windows and stuff on this house to, like, make it look like a house. We have this, like, fun, fancy fence. I'm not making this look like a fence very convincingly, I'm sorry. But we could, like, put all kinds of details into it, like, make it really pretty. Because this is, like, one of our standout things in the picture to, like, make it look very garden-y. Because I often, when I imagine a garden, I imagine, like, a really cool fence. Like stone or wrought iron or something like that. With, like, maybe some ornate details or, like, some moss growing on it. Like, that kind of thing. And then we'll put, like, little hills and mountains in the background. Maybe we could have some more tree foliage in the front. And we'll do, like, a little bit of a shadow in those trees, so that foreground looks very, very separate from the background. Darker. So, like, bam, you know what you're supposed to be looking at. We can add, like, a little bit of... Oh my god, I'm getting real sloppy here. We're gonna add a little bit of value on the mountains behind, because in the last thumbnail, I was like, oh, you could make the mountains, like, really, like, faded. But in this one, we can imagine that the sun is, like, beaming down on this garden. And, like, here the character is being, like, framed by darker values in front and behind. So she's just, like, lit up. Yes, she is a mouse. And since the canvas is gray, I could even, like, further the spotlight effect. Because it's like you want to be putting a spotlight on the character. Like, oh, the light is shining on the garden. Maybe on the house. So now that we have, like, the basic stuff, now we can start, like, placing some objects. So we want like a shovel. We can have a shovel. Oh, it's white. That's wrong. We can have a shovel, like, leaning up against the hutch. We can have a big watering can. Like, maybe she was just watering and she stopped to, like, pick some leaves out that were gross or something. I don't know much about gardening. Um, and we can, like, these are the items that, like, we want to put, like, a lot of detail on if we can, because, like, these are the items that say, like, bam, this is a garden, right? And then we've got, like, our other, like, ephemera that says garden. Like, we've got, like, plants around the perimeter here. Maybe there's, like, some bags of potting soil here and there. We got, like, little pots, and they can also have plants. We talked about, like, marigolds. We just want to, like, create clutter and not have, like, a lot of empty space. Because the more stuff, like, kind of points at the character, the more you're gonna look at her, right? We have some more soil, some more little plants, a couple of pots. And, like, if at any point, like, you're doing this and, like, you start to think, like, oh, this item would actually be cool here, like, stick in whatever you want that's, like, gonna make it more garden-y. Like, I don't know, maybe there's some, like, ivy going up the house, or some, like, a squash plant that's, like, climbing the house or something like that. That's even more, like, garden stuff, right? Maybe this hutch has, like, a carving on it, I don't know, and it's got a flower. Here's the thing. Once you get to this point and you've kind of filled the space, one more thing that you can start thinking about is the atmosphere. And I think because this is an outdoor scene, that's perfect for this kind of thing. And there's kind of like a couple of oh my Tamagotchi, come on. There's kind of like a couple of like categories of atmosphere that I might do for a scene like this. Depending, like, we've already kind of like decided that it's gonna be like sunlit, so we're not gonna do like rain or something like that. We could certainly do wind blowing like leaves around, or, you know, something like that. But what we could do is, if you sorry, my Tamagotchi is, like, making all kinds of noise. I'm feeding it. But what you could do is you could have, like, sprinklers going off in one part of the garden. You could have her actually, like, using the watering can and the water coming out and, like, water spraying. But I think the most fun thing to do for this drawing is bugs. I kind of, like, think of them as, like, part of, like, the atmosphere or whatever, but, like, they're a little thing that you can add that I think adds, like, a lot of, like, sense of, like, you're really in this place, right? And I'm gonna get rid of this little grid, but you can see, like, it looks like she's standing on the ground and all these plants are growing out of the ground. So I think I would finish this up by, like, adding, like, little bugs flying around. Or maybe there's a bug, like, hanging out over here on this flower pot. You know, there could be, like, I mean, butterflies seem like the obvious one to me, because I feel like butterflies and bees and things like that are going to be hanging out in a garden. And, you know, obviously it's going to be, like, easier to see if it's, like, bigger. But I like drawing, like, a lot of little things. A ladybug, right? Like, there's a little ladybug, like, hanging out over here on the tree. And you could even draw, like, a little bird, like, sitting on the fence. There's a little bird. He's sitting on the fence. He's going caw caw, or flying. Because you have, like, a hawk that hangs out in your garden, I know. You have like a little hawk flying above. Little things like that that add like a sense of like life and um activity, I guess. You know, they're simple enough that they're not gonna distract from the character, and you could even have the character like interacting with like a butterfly or something like that. The butterfly could be like landing on her ear or something. It's little things like that that can add like a lot of energy to like, especially like an outdoor thing. But even if you were doing like, we were talking about like a kitchen, you could do like a bird like sitting on the windowsill like outside, or you know, a butterfly flying by or something like that. You know, I think little things like that just, you know, can make a big difference in like having like a really active like upbeat drawing. But yeah, like that's kind of the stuff that I had planned to talk about. Is there anything else that like you want me to talk about, or talk about more, or